So yeah, as John mentioned, we've got some foreigners in the house coming all the way from Australia. John, thank you for bringing them to our attention and for making the connection. I'm really excited for tonight. So Daley's Fruit Tree Nursery has been around. They've been fruitfully and joyously producing fruit trees since the 1980s. They started selling them at their local marketplace. Since then, they've successfully mail ordered fruit trees around the country, and seems like Aussies are big on growing fruit, and so they provide fruit trees and nuts, nut growing trees for their community. And they're definitely near and dear to our heart in terms of growing rare fruits. And so I'm excited to have them today. We've got 3 guests here. We have Pauline, who's on the right of your screen. And then we have Erin to the left and Caleb in the middle. And they're gonna have a 3-part presentation. They're tag teaming this like a true good coworker crew. And I appreciate you guys coming tonight. Thanks so much. Take it away.
Thanks, Ty.
Good to be here.
Yeah, and thanks, John, for inviting us. It's great to make that connection with you and with your group. We're pretty, I think we've got a pretty special place in the world here down in northern New South Wales. It's the temperature is so mild, and the geography of the place has just allowed us to grow such a range of fruit trees that we've got the widest range of any nursery in Australia. So coupled with our ability to market straight to the consumer, it's pretty special. But we've each got our passions. Erin's going to talk to you about food forestry today, and Caleb's passion is bush food. So he's going to fill you in on some of the indigenous food crops that are really only becoming commercially developed now. And I've got lots of passions. I'm going to talk to you today about the geology of the area and how that's shaped how people live here and the business too. So the weather's coming in now, so I hope the wind doesn't affect our audio too much. So you might have heard Australia being described as the oldest and driest continent on Earth, and we think that is true because we've been originally we were connected to the great supercontinent Gondwana, which has we share some of our flora with both South America and South Africa because of that. And so more than 300 million years ago, most of our geology was created by tectonic plate interaction, and it's hardly changed since. So as we broke away from Gondwana and moved north, pretty much the continent just started slowly eroding away, and nutrients were leaching, and the soils were aging. And as we moved north, the continent started to dry out, and we entered the subtropical ridge that you actually are in California are almost in as well. It's a very dry region of the planet of high pressure ridges. And as we moved north into that, the continent dried out, and we sort of lost our connection to the we shared with South America and South Africa, and we started to evolve our own unique flora. So that's been a big part of the evolution of Australia, moving north. And interestingly, because of the age of the continent, this great dividing range that attracts the weather on our east coast has been there for 180 million years, even longer, 300 million years. And it's really influenced that East Coast weather. You in California, you're on a West Coast, and generally drier conditions prevail, as you are experiencing now. And we really feel for you over there because we experience it too. You can see on our West Coast so much drier because the prevailing winds drop a little bit of rain on the coast, and that's about it. But over here, as we move north, we started to move over a magma hotspot, much like your Yellowstone. And as the where the crust of the earth was thin enough, lava broke through and built up these mountains again. So they got refreshed, and that had started happening about 25 million years ago. And down where we are in the Northern Rivers, where we are in the rivers,
Pauline.
part of Australia, this is where we are here. And we're really on a convergence of the subtropics.
Hey, Pauline, I have a quick suggestion to see if we can help increase the audio quality. If you can find where, or Erin or anyone can find where the microphone would be on the whatever computer, wherever the microphone would be located. If there's a way to just shield the microphone from the wind effect, that could be helpful. We can hear you. There you go. Cardboard boxes is great.
Yeah.
That should help buffer because we're just getting a little high end coming through from the wind. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, hopefully that's better.
That does sound better, yes. Great, thank you.
Okay, so I was talking about the drying out of our continent and shifting into a new kind of evolution of different flora. And so there's some that are quite iconic to Australia. Our wattle trees. So that's the family Fabaceae. They're nitrogen fixing. They flower in winter. So right now across the country, landscapes have that golden yellow flower brightening up the place, and we love them. Wattle is our national floral emblem too. We also became a continent covered. Oops, back again. Continent covered in gum trees, the Myrtaceae family. That's you'd be familiar with them because I think they've been planted throughout California for their timber and their aesthetic too. Very unique to Australia. It's a whole range of our unique fauna. Yeah, it's windy. Myrtaceae family we share with South Africa, and we've got those unique plants, the grevilleas, the banksias, and our macadamia nuts, which you'd be familiar with, which is one of our best commercially viable bush foods. And of course, all our grasses, which have kept humans alive in this continent for millennia. So things did change in our continent, and it really made this place quite unique. So the ancient trees that have persisted from our Gondwana times are the araucarias, which exist throughout the Pacific and South America, and that's one of our significant shoots, the honey nut tree. They're an amazing tree, related to the monkey puzzle tree, which you'll probably be familiar with. So in the Great Dividing Range, there's uplands that have been created there by that volcanic activity that we had been passing over, has created these uplands that have quite a bit of altitude there. They attract the rain from the coast. They shield us from the worst of the southerly weather that comes in, so trapping the snow and keeping us warm, which is a really good thing. And they provide refugia for some very unique species. These are Nothofagus morii, Antarctic beech. They've been there for thousands of years. Some of the trees could be thousands of years old. And also we have unique species to this area, and species that are only found in southern Australia too are found on the uplands around us. And that has led to the uplands around us being recognised with World Heritage status, because some of the flora is so unique. And that's just such a wonderful thing to go and explore in our spare time. This is a map of our area, and you can see the dark green areas these are the World Heritage forests. And so when we have southeasterly air streams come in, they replenish the aquifers, they drop rain. We do have fairly stable river systems here coming off this part of the range. They're largely spring fed, and it's really only the most severe summers where our rivers will slow to a trickle. So we're very lucky there. The nursery has a secure supply of water on site as well. That has helped by our regular rainfall. So as that ecology developed around us, it's we were very lucky to have our soils replenished by that volcanic activity, and it's made the area quite rich. So when the place was first settled by Europeans, it was turned into a place that was first used as for timber, to make an income from timber, and then it was turned into dairy farming. And then it's fast forward to the late 20th century, the 1980s. The Daley family had been farming here as dairy farmers, and Greg Daley got the bug to be growing fruit trees and native trees from the area, and started doing that. And as it became more viable, he was supplying local markets and selling on site, and bringing in his brothers. So it became a family business and grew from there. Then with the advent of the internet, Corey Edmed, one of the Daleys' nephews, came in and built the website and enabled us to market direct to the customer, which transformed the business and made us particularly resilient with the COVID pandemic, that we can continue to trade through to direct to the customer. And so with that, there's just been this explosion of people's interest in growing food. I think as a way to occupy their time in lockdown, but also because they recognise how valuable it is to be growing your own food. And I think we've been part of developing the passion in the community in Australia too. I mean, we've got a very strong immigrant community, so they're aware of these fruits and they go looking for them, and we're there to help them grow them in their backyard. So yes, so we're uniquely placed to grow a range of tropicals, from jackfruits and soursops right down to our temperate fruits, the stone fruit. There's low chill cherries available now that are suitable for our area, and that's really the only things that we can't grow are things like rambutan and durian, but we do try, but not very successfully. We're in a latitude that's a bit closer to the equator than you. I think we're about halfway down the Baja Peninsula in comparison. But we still get quite cool winters. Like I said, we're going to have a frost on Monday, we think. And that's kind of exciting. We do like a bit of a change in the weather. But yeah, so yeah, all of those things, the geology and the climate and the unique people that the Daleys are, has just made this project all evolve over the last 40 years. And passions have evolved with that. And now it's not just growing things in your backyard, it's growing a food forest in your backyard and mimicking nature and creating a unique growing environment there, making use of microclimates. And Erin, this is Erin's particular passion, and she's going to elaborate more on how valuable that is to fruit growing. So passing over to Erin now.
Thanks, Pauline. Let's just find where we are.
Let me just skip forward.
Skipping forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Oh, this is our site. This is hello everybody. This is our site where the nursery is located in Kyogo. So we have quite a beautiful surround. We're surrounded by cow paddocks here, but we are nested in amongst that, and we do our best to, send as many beautiful trees out to the Australian community as possible. So, and that is the team that we are working with here at the nursery. There is about 20 of us that work together, and we have a really tight group, and we all work beautifully together, and we all have very similar passion to share the good word about rare fruits and fruit trees in general to Australians in the world. So I'll just keep passing through the slides of Pauline. Okay, so this brings it to my presentation. So I've been here with Daleys for coming up to 6 years now. I've done various jobs throughout the nursery, trying to learn as much as possible and do as many different roles as possible within the nursery as I can. It is a small family business at its core, so the more that you can learn, the better the business will run. So I really enjoy grafting. I really enjoy the propagation, the production, the sending out, the sales, the talking to customers. It's all a part of our roles here at Daleys, and we all share in that, and we all enjoy doing as much as possible. So being here for the last 6 years, I have obviously developed many passions and interest in different plants over time. And so how I arrived to be here at Daleys is I come from a background of probably gardening for the last 20 years and more intensely over the last 10 years developing my own gardens at home. And I have a background in holistic healing and health. So I have a real interest in systems and healing and health and wellness and just how the micro affects the macro. So I like to bring that into how I approach gardening as well. So looking at systems and cycles and how everything can work together to improve the health of the foods and the health of the soil as well. So for me, I really want to see more food forestry in people's backyards, and that's probably where my passion is. I have moved into a smaller suburban site, so really being in suburbia and having a backyard garden is where I'm at, and if I can help promote that to our customers and people around the world, then I think that's pretty exciting. So when we look at the spaces that we have, we obviously need to look at the resources that we have. And for me, working at a nursery, and for you having this group and these contacts, you have a lot of access to good information and excellent trees and knowledge. And it's so important for us to share as much as possible with the rest of the world. So when I was listening to you talk about the markets and just the work that you're doing, I was really delighted to hear about how much rare fruit is being promoted out there in the world. And, you know, it's not all just apples and oranges. It's pretty exciting when we get into some more of the diverse fruits that are available to us. All we need to do is have a go and find our love for them. So here at the nursery, as John mentioned, my predecessor was Kath, and Kath probably spent the better part of the last 17 years promoting fruit trees to the world. So she's had an amazing legacy of videos and communications with customers and just providing information and teaching the world about fruit trees. And so I'm really happy to be here at Daleys and to carry on in her legacy and learn as much as I can. I love doing courses. I'm currently studying another agroforestry course, syntropic course, so that is fueling my passion for food forestry even more. And it's always good to keep learning. We never stop learning when we're gardeners. So this is a little bit more about the site at the nursery. We have a couple of food forest zones that we have here that we experiment with. So the larger one at the top, that is our big exclusion orchard area. And John has spent some time in there, so he'll be familiar with that one. So that is where we grow a lot of our subtropical fruit trees. Some of them are possibly bordering on tropical. We do our best to protect them from the cool weather, especially when we have the frosty winter days coming through. So we will do things like wrapping our trunks and just protecting them as much as possible. It's quite densely planted, as you can see here. This is within the exclusion zone. So we have a mix of evergreens and deciduous trees in there. Deciduous trees, obviously we want to be collecting the wood and the fruits, protecting them from the birds and the bats and the fruit flies. So that is one of the benefits of the exclusion orchard, is it protects it from all of those predators and pests that we want to keep out. And we use it as a site where we can promote these fruits to customers as well. So we'll make a range of videos based on the trees that we experiment with in that zone. So the humidity is quite good in there. It is on irrigation. The trees are all on raised beds. It's quite a heavy site soil wise, but they do quite well in there. So lots of mangoes and carambolas and longans and lychees, those kind of trees we have growing in there. So the other site that we have at the nursery here as our demonstration for customers and for just for us to try, you know, we are also experimenting constantly as well. So we have the Biodome is what we call it. It's an unassuming poly house. It looks quite rustic in its outward appearance. and we are developing that. This is this side. So we've developed this side of the zone, and now we're moving over to develop this other side, and that is what is coming through here. So we'll be putting together videos and information on how we go about creating that biodome as well. And this one has probably been running for about 6 or 7 years. So it's quite developed, and I've got, this is a little peek at what we have going on in the biodome. So first up, we have vanilla growing in there. So we're in the subtropical climate. As yet, it is yet to fruit as far as I'm aware, but we have eagle eyes on that one to look out for fruiting. We've got a cha-cha in there that fruited for the very first time last year. So that was a long-term project, and we're excited about that. Jackfruits fruit well in there. Rolinias do very well. Sapodillas do exceptionally well in our biodome. It's in size, the roof height is probably about 5 meters. So we do a lot of management on the size. So we have to keep things pruned and small. And that works really fine for backyard gardeners. Keeping things quite short in height makes it a lot more manageable. And being inundated with lots of fruit can be, difficult to move some of that fruit. So having smaller trees means you're not quite as overwhelmed with fruit, and it's just a really good amount of production in the orchard there. So there's mangoes, lots of support trees like pigeon peas, you can see there with the flowering, dragon fruits, pineapples, vines, ground covers. It's just a really great experimental site for us to have and try things. We do have a durian in there at the moment, which is extremely borderline for our area because it is quite cool and it does require quite a lot of babying. I'm not sure if you've been successful, if that's a possibility where you are. It's generally not possible where we are. So, but we do like to try, and hopefully it will survive. We'll keep a good watch on that one. So that's our other biodome project, and I'll just move through to the next slide. It's just being a little slow here. Oh yeah. So this is a selection of fruits that we have regularly coming through the nursery here. Obviously there, the achachas down there, we're so excited to have those last year. Abius are a great favorite of ours here at the nursery. That may be the highlight of the year so far for me. Lots of carambolas, Brazilian cherries. We have this wonderful black Brazilian cherry. I'm not sure if you have that where you are. That is fantastic. We have obviously the stone fruits do well here. Subtropical low chill stone fruits. We all enjoy those. Wampies, fantastic. Low chill apples. They're a great and popular delight for us to be able to grow here. And right now we are coming into canicel time, and that is probably a highlight for all of us.
We have 3 canistel lovers here.
We love canicels. I'm not sure how popular they are with you folks there, but definitely one that at first they're quite hard to get used to, but then once you get used to them, yeah, they're a real treasure. So we've been enjoying those. And obviously persimmons, a winner. Non-astringents and astringents grow beautifully here. And we've got a great range of muscadine grapes and lower chill grapes that handle the humidity, because we're quite humid here. So a lot of the grapes that we sell at this time of year come from dry temperate regions. And then we obviously can't grow those so well due to the climate, but a lot of customers buy those from us at this time of year, and we'll get those in from other parts of the country. So it is winter, and a lot of these subtropical fruits aren't available with us right now. So at this time of year, we do bring in low, higher chill varieties so that other parts of the country can purchase those and plant their own orchards out with their favorites. So these are some of the favorites, obviously, that we have here: the jackfruits, the sapotes, the custard apples, the annonas, and the avocados are things that grow really well. We're really fortunate at Daleys to be located quite close to Tropical Fruit World. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It is a large working farm, tropical fruit farm over on the coast. It's probably about an hour and a half east of here, and they have an excellent selection of all of the subtropical fruits, and we have a really good relationship with them. So we can go to them for seed. We try to capture as much seed as possible as we can from them to feed into our nursery, and then of course on to customers. So they have excellent selections of the subtropical fruits that we have high demand for. And we have a really great system here at the nursery where we can track what people are wanting. And so we really try and push into those areas and fulfill the demand. But of course, there's such a great demand for fruit trees and gardening in Australia that it's really hard to fulfill everyone's requests. We would really love to have grafted sapodillas and grafted jackfruits, you know, on tap, but they can be tricky to graft. And if there's a bad season, then rootstock can be an issue. So you'd all be familiar with the throes and virtues of rootstock availability and success of grafting and cutting. It's all trial and error, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We just have to keep trying, and we do our best to do as much as we can with the resources that we have here. With being a small nursery, we do purchase a lot of fruit trees from warmer climates that have a higher volume of output, and then we can on-sell those to customers. So where we can't supply, we will source and push those out. So Food Forests, as Pauline mentioned, they are a great passion of mine, and they are a passion of mine because I, when first getting into gardening, food forestry was a bit of a foreign concept to me, and I just like to plant as much as possible. Having one of everything was probably the ideal for me. So plant as much as possible in whatever space I have, and then bringing that all together, you actually end up creating a food forest. And there are designs and systems that you can apply, but at the end of the day, you're bringing together a diverse group of plants together, and you're creating your very own forest of food. And of course, it doesn't have to be completely food. You can have that with supportive trees that are growing in your area already. That's a really good way to kickstart your system, to use trees that are already growing and then add the fruit trees in. But of course, growing as much fruit as possible and food as possible is a passion of mine. I have a big family. I've got 5 kids. I'm thinking of the future. I want to provide as much as possible and grow as much as possible in my yard that I can, because that way I can control the inputs and I can control the pests and manage the way that I want to manage. So, so why do we create food forests? Well, obviously, there's benefits with the food forest because, like a forest, there is protection of the soil, and that's probably a really key part of food forestry, is that there's never any bare soil, whether it's being shaded by trees or if it's being shaded out by mulch. You're protecting that precious layer of earth, which is where all the nutrients are and all the storage for the growth to happen. So we really want to protect that soil as much as possible, maximize the food that we can produce food or fiber. You can really tailor it to whatever is, takes your fancy. So if there is a particular style of trees or a particular type of tree that you like to grow, then you can tailor your system to focus on that and use other plants to support that. So obviously there's benefits with capturing carbon and producing fungus within the soil and turning the soil into a more bacteria-based or more fungal-based, which is a more long-term project which has greater benefits for your trees. So you can obviously create food forests wherever, on whatever scale you like. We don't have to be limited to thinking that you need a really large area. You can do it in your backyard. You can do it in pots on your balcony. So it's just about context, and you work with what you've got to maximize what you can. Obviously, you need to think about things like your location and the aspect and how you will design it and what water you have available. So you need to just be mindful of what is going to create the biggest growth and biggest benefit, and probably make it easy for yourself as well. We don't want to get overwhelmed with our gardens. there's enough for us to do. We want to go to our gardens and enjoy the time that we spend there. So we work with what we can. So obviously with food forestry, you're planting a range of plants. It's a mix of long-term and short-term. Obviously, you can use the short-term plants like annuals to kickstart the system, while simultaneously having the long-term trees growing as well. So they work together, and eventually it'll just become a long-term perennial system that will require less and less maintenance over time and become more self-reliant. So the best time to plant your food forest is now. If you've already got one, it's always good to add more things in or manage it. Or if you haven't got one, then just start. Just add some other varieties of plants around the trees that you already have, and give it a go. Such a wonderful way to garden. So obviously the food forestry is a polyculture rather than a monoculture. So we are planting in a way that fosters the connection between humans and the garden, because gardens actually require humans to maintain it and steer it in a direction that promotes growth and abundance. So we can just let nature take its course and plant and let things grow, but it just becomes unmanageable. So we do actually need to get in there, and we do need to prune, and we do need to keep an eye on it and watch for the cycles and be involved and do what we can. So let's have a look. This is my front yard. So this was my own project. Well, this is my front yard here about a year ago, and this is a site here at the nursery that I started. So we've both gone from, they're both sites that were quite bare. They didn't have a lot of life in them. Really, I struggled to find any worms in my yard before I started planting and designing my food forest. So I have worked over the last year to design and plant and foster something that will promote growth, and it's been a good process. I've enjoyed watching it grow over the last year and just planting as many things as possible. Obviously, I work at a nursery, so I have great access to a range of plants, and I enjoy trying out different things in my own garden. So from here, we've gone to this. So this is probably in the last 6 months, the growth has really come up, and I like to use a lot of bananas and pigeon peas and papayas and tamarillos just to kickstart the system. Then within the system, there are the more long-term trees that are developing slowly. So the short-term plants like bananas and papayas, they will come out in the next couple of years. And then the trees like the canistels and the achachas and the mangoes and avocados, they will start to come through and shine, and the layers will start to develop over time. So we think about time and space when we're creating food forests. So there is the time component, where obviously some things are quite short-lived, like your annuals, and even short-lived perennials like the papayas. And then there is the long-term plants, like your fruit trees, that it's probably what most people go in for when they think of a garden. They just go straight for the fruit trees and plant those. And you can often come across orchards, and there's a great range of fruit trees, but there's nothing in between. There's nothing supporting those fruit trees along the way. So I really enjoy seeing gardens that have the fruit trees. They also have the other layers there that are over time developing, and you're chopping and you're dropping, and you're using that as fuel for those fruit trees to develop and strengthen. Fruit trees really do work best in a more fungal based soil. So having this biomass, having these woody plants that you are chopping and dropping regularly and laying down on the ground is really benefiting those long-term fruit trees that you have and that we want, so the fruits and nuts. So to have a food forest, it's really about management and the layers and keeping the layers in check. Obviously you have you have a range of layers, and in the background here you can faintly see that you have these high emergent trees. And if you think of it in terms of our body, and I'll relate it back to our body, the emergent trees are more like our head. So they can take full sun all day, all the time. So they are right at the top there. And you don't want to have too many of those in your system, because if you have too many, then it's really going to block out those other layers. And then, so that's really things like your pecans and your Panama berries and your moringas. You know, they're going to grow fast and they're going to grow tall, and they are going to do a beautiful job right at the top. And then you come down to your shoulders, and they're the more high canopy trees, and things like persimmons and black sapotes, mangoes, avocados. They can take a little bit of shade from that top layer. So they're perfectly situated to have a little bit of shade, a little bit of protection, just like our shoulders get from our head. And then you move down to your belly, and that's the medium layer. And that's where you can probably get most of your production is in that medium layer, because you can fit a lot more plants within that section. And they're getting about 40%. If you think of these as maybe 20% shade from the emergent, 20% shade from the high trees, then you get to the medium trees, and they can take about 40% of shade, and they'll be productive. So things like citrus do really well in a little bit of shade. A lot of the time you see them growing out in full sun, but in actual fact they can handle that shade. So interplanting your citrus with these higher trees like avocados can be a really good combination when you're doing food forestry. And then as you go lower, you're going down to the legs and down to your feet, then obviously that can take quite a lot more shade. So gingers and pineapples and vines that meander along the ground, those, and blueberries, those are the kind of plants that you're going to be seeing down low. So as well as all of these layers as reflected in a body, if you superimpose that onto the forest and see that image there in the background, there are also support trees that you can use within your food forest, grasses and nitrogen fixers such as wattles and pigeon peas and comfrey, just things that you're constantly chopping and dropping. And even if there's some potential weedy plants in your area, we have a plant here, wild tobacco, and we have lantana, and they have really bad names, but you can actually use things like that within your system to chop and drop and keep fueling that layer of protection of mulch on the ground. So look around, look at what's growing naturally in your area, and you can incorporate those into your system. You're managing them, so you're not letting them get out of hand. You're chopping, you're dropping. It's just adding fuel to the greater good there. So food forestry, it can be quite overwhelming when you get into all of the cycles and the layers. But as I said, at the end of the day, it's just planting a selection and stacking plants and creating a zone, much like we have in our biodome within that video. We've stacked and selected over time, and it just creates this beautiful environment. When you walk in there, you feel that the humidity is there. It has a different feel to it, as opposed to walking out into a garden where there's patches of plants. And of course, within Australia, we have these beautiful selection of bush foods, and I like to incorporate those into the garden as well. So lily pillies do really well. You'll probably be familiar with Davidson plums and bunya nuts, and Caleb's going to talk to you about bush foods and how we can use those as well, or what we like to do with them here.
Hi guys, I'm Caleb. I had 3 years last week that I've been at the nursery. So yeah, kind of new compared to everyone else here. Before that, I was running tours of a bush food botanic gardens up north. So I met all these in the wild. The wild of the botanic gardens that have been there for 30 years. And yeah, so it is a bit of a passion of mine, because who wouldn't love native bush foods? What really grinds my gears though is that they're all named apple or all named plum. Davidson plum, it really deserves its own name. But because the when the colonizers came over, they looked at a dark purple round fruit and they called it a plum. They saw red fruit hanging off a tree and called it an apple. So we have a lot of apples and a lot of plums in our bush food, and a lot of, or 3 different native limes, at least 3 native limes. But yes, they're also versatile and they're also incredible, and they're so useful within a food forest. Because things like our lilies have height ranges on our website of 2 to 20 meters. That's an incredible height range that is so versatile and so useful. We'll get to that. When pre-colonization, we had 250 different indigenous languages or tribes, peoples, depending on the terminology you use. It's kind of before living memory, obviously. So we are using records of the languages they use to determine tribal groups. It's possible that we had multiple tribes, groups, peoples, countries from that era that all spoke the same language, and we have grouped them together. It's probably many more than 250, but the diversity is we've definitely lost a fair bit of variety in the intervening years. But our flora and our microclimates are almost as diverse as our culture used to be. Of course, now our culture is just diverse with immigrants, ethnic groups, everyone else. So we have more diversity now. So we'll get on to, I've broken up some basic genres of our native flora. Nuts and seeds. We have our bunny nut up in the top corner. This photo doesn't really do it justice. Those things are bigger than a bowling ball, like huge, up to 20 kilos sort of thing. And they drop from 20, 30 meters high. So they will put a very big dent in your car. We don't tend to walk through bunyard forests in fruiting season. But they would have corroborees in the Bunya Mountains because they have a masked fruiting season. So similar to some of the exotic fruit, they will all fruit. I think the pecans do it especially. They'll all fruit in 1 year, and then they'll have a break with sporadic fruiting for a couple of years, and they'll all fruit again all at once. So the indigenous knew, and they would come together and celebrate with as much food as they could eat, because these trees were huge and would produce incredible amounts of fruit. Very similar to Brazil nuts, chestnuts in use, in texture and flavor. Definitely emergence if you would put one in your backyard. I wouldn't advise it for a small backyard. Macadamias. I believe you guys would have met them before. They're not from Hawaii, they are ours. Yes, they are actually a rainforest understory kind of plant. So they can get big, but they definitely fit into the middle high canopy sort of stage. So we have a few dwarf varieties, easy to fit in the backyard, incredible producers. And the wattles, the assortment of wattles, so many varieties of wattles. The bramble wattle I got pictured there, that is the largest seed. So commercially, that's probably the one you're buying if you're buying wattle seed powder. They're very thorny though, the bramble wattles. I imagine somewhat similar to the African acacias. So nuts and seeds also includes the annual and perennial grasses. So that's, before we converted it all to dairy flats, there were a lot of perennial grass prairie land type environments that the indigenous used to live off the grain. Currently, they're not really in use in production commercially, but there is a lot of interest in it, just as there is in all of our bush tucker at the moment. So, fresh fruit. This is closer to the sort of stuff you'll pick off the tree and bring inside, sit in your fruit bowl and eat for lunch. Where some of them are slightly sour to Western tastes. So the Davidson plum, beautiful, beautiful fruit. There's a few different species with a few different growth habits that are either cauliflorous, fruiting from the trunk or from the crown, some that are multi-branched shrubby things, and others that reach 10+ meters tall, really bushy, and some that don't prune very well at all and grow more like a papaya. But they're so versatile, so useful. Again, easily adaptable into a shady middle layer. Round pine. I've seen these as Christmas trees. I've seen them as emergents. I've seen them as hedges. They're incredible too. I love those plants. So the fruit is actually an accessory fruit. The seed is this green-gray blob on the end. So easy to make jam from, so there's no seed in the middle. You pull the seeds off the outside, you throw it all in a pot, cook with it, you have a delicious plum sauce. Far less time it takes to seed grapes or whatever you're going to do. Small leaf tamarinds. These guys are similar to lychees. They're in the same Sapindaceae family. So I don't know if you can quite see it there. The arrow, the red arrow there is splitting. So it comes in a seed in a pod, as you can see. The arrow splits and the seed kind of pops out the middle. So it's, again, really easy to seed and incredibly, well, kind of sour like the Davos. More like a gobstopper sort of sweet. What would you call them? We call them warheads here, those lollies. Butyria australis. So I threw this one in just, I haven't tried this one personally, but it's a Butyria, so similar to canistel, similar to abiu, similar to your sapodillas, all of the, yeah, there's a whole range of natives that are useful in the same way as their namesake, or as their similar species. So small leaf tamarind has the same sour astringency. You can easily use it as a replacement for tamarind paste, but you have to adjust the recipe for the texture, but the flavor's there. What's next? Fresh berries. I love the lilies. Like Erin, I'm from a young family too. I've got 3 kids. So my oldest one and I, whenever we're walking down the street and we see lily billies, we will climb the tree and we will try them, because there's 64 species, not counting the cultivars, and all of them are edible. Palatability is different. Some of them are really sour, some of them taste like nothing, and it adds a bit of an adventure to our day, just walking down the street and picking these fruit. They're used extensively as hedges and street trees because of their versatility, and you can prune them however you like, you can hedge them, you can cut them around power lines. They don't really care what you do. They will just continue to fruit because they're hardy and tolerant and adapted to the environment.
The flavor of them?
And the flavor, I should talk about the flavor. Hey, like I covered that. They're variable.
Very.
Some of them are really sour, some of them are.
Some are better than others.
Some are definitely better than others. All of them make an incredible jam, but most things paired with equal amount of sugar make an incredible jam.
Funny that.
But yes, we enjoy them. We enjoy all of them. I've tried some that are like melt in the mouth. Syzygium oleosum, the blue lily billy. The flavor is bland, but the texture is more like a meringue. So you put it in your mouth and it just disappears. And it's, yeah, quite bizarre. I've tried others like the red apple that were, small plum size and huge, delicious. They were slightly on the sour side, but the kind that you couldn't stop eating. So you would walk past a tree on the side of the tour, people would fill their pockets and they would still be eating them at the end because they just can't stop. It was lots of fun. Midgeonberries. They were the lollies you would pull over the car on a road trip and you'd stop and you'd get out and you'd pick all the lily billies. That's how the folklore goes about the outback, like out in the middle of Australia in the desert. You'll pull up and you'll eat midgeonberries off the side of the road because they're so tough, so versatile, so delicious. Like blueberries with a eucalyptus, well, I don't know if you know your eucalyptus, bit of a mentha tint to them, to the flavor. And sandpepper figs, just as sweet as another fig. We were eyeing off the Violet de Bordeaux down the orchard, saying it's basically comparable to a sandpepper fig if you get one. That might just be my bias going there. Myrtles and teas. So the Myrtaceae family always has that the oil content to it, the scent of eucalyptus leaves. As I was saying with the midgeonberry, but a lot of them are really useful for teas, flavorings, and baking, I guess. You can get anything from lemon myrtle ice cream to aniseed myrtle tea to cinnamon myrtle and curry myrtle spice mixes for your curries. And each of the trees is, again, apparently gets to 10 to 20 meters, but I see them planted around the street trees at 3 meters. They're so versatile in use in horticultural and culinary use.
Beautiful.
And they're beautiful. Look at the flowers.
Yeah.
I love them. Bush spices. So the more that you'll find in your spice mix shelves, although they also make a great tea, the bush pepper, Tasmania lanceolata. There's also a Tasmanian insipida that is slightly closer geographically to us. But yeah, so you can dry those berries and throw them in your pepper grinder, and you can't really tell the difference from what I've heard. Then we have the native gingers. There is a whole range of native gingers. This one is Alpinia cerulean.
Cerulean.
So there's also I'm not sure how it's the same Latin, the African redback, which has gorgeous like maroon foliage, burgundy foliage on the underside of the leaf. So green on top, bright red on the bottom. It's fantastic as an ornamental and as an edible. The rhizomes are far more mild than the commercial Asian gingers, but they're useful. And the berries taste like ginger lollies. The seeds are quite bitter. They're still quite nice. They get the saliva going if you're hiking and getting dry mouth. Native citrus. As I said before, we have a lot of native citrus and they're doing a lot of crossbreeding between our native citrus and the exotics that are being imported. And we're coming up with some really nice, exciting cultivars. Fun fact that is relevant to America at the moment, the HLB, the orange greening disease that you guys are getting, citrus greening, the finger limes are immune to it, and they've actually derived a protein that you can spray on young trees to protect it against this disease. So far, it's not patented yet, and it's under research, and everyone is being super secretive about it. So I can't get much more for you on that. I tried really hard to find information because I would love to know. But yes, and then we've got the Australian round lime and the finger lime. They're both incredible fruit. The finger limes come in a range of colors, as you can see. They look like citrus caviar, so all little bubbles in here. They pop in your mouth and add a burst of flavor to any salad, any meal, anything you're interested in putting them on. Quite delicious, and again, fit so easily into your backyard. Although they're fairly spiky, as you can see on these Australian round limes. And that's about it. We've got some more native, citrus family here, the pink limeberries. They're delicious all the time. Lily pillies, another variety. These are a native solanum. We've got the kangaroo apple and more Davidson plums. Then we have our assorted social media sites all around the outside. I think that's about all I've got to talk about.
Yeah, with our social media, we try and keep in touch with the community, the gardening community at large as much as possible. And we're really happy we're always answering questions. Pauline's constantly answering gardening questions from people all over the world. And we try and put out as much information as possible based on the experience that we have here with our own trees and the information that we can get from our suppliers as well. So there's a really big network of like-minded people that we are in touch with, and we just keep trying to share as much as possible, because promoting rare fruits is a real big passion of ours. And every day we're sending out plants to people across the country and helping to inspire people to develop their own gardens and find those flavors that they can be quite sentimental about. Food often brings up a lot of memories for people, and we're in the hearts of gardening's in the hearts of, you know, people around the world. So it's a really passionate business that we have here, and we enjoy, you know, bringing joy through plants to people as much as possible, I think.
So I hope we've been able to share that our passion with you, and that we've conveyed that to you, and hopefully you've learned something today. Yeah, quite unique what we do here at Daleys, we think. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the talk today.
Yeah, that was really wonderful. Really appreciate all that you've been able to put together for us. We're kind of similar in many ways, because you're growing a lot of the trees that we grow here. We were going to have Helen Hill from up the top end talk about her cha-cha orchard, but apparently they got inundated with some sort of a virus, mold or something or other on the fruit, and she was in panic mode at the time, so opted out of giving a presentation. But you know, we share a lot in common, and I wanted to try and get that across to our members over here. You know, is that there's not a heck of a lot difference. We all try to do the same thing. We all try to learn as best we can, and do the chop and drop wherever we can, and try and increase the mycology of the soil, and use less fertilizers, and let the fungi and bacteria do the work that they're supposedly supposed to be doing. You know, so as I said, it's wonderful. Ty, you've got a bit to say, I'm sure, because you've gone down this road. You've got a background in arboring and all sorts of things, so you probably have a lot more to say than me. And then, if it's okay, we'll open up question and answers. Hand over to you, Ty.
Yeah, well, thank you all. That was really fun. I am excited, especially we had a presentation on the bush foods, but this was like some unique takes I hadn't seen. I didn't realize there were different patarias, and just so many different things on the citrus side we've heard of that we would love to get, all these different colors of Australian finger limes and different flavors. Definitely jealous on that front. Yeah, so we've got some questions for you, if you wouldn't mind. Maybe we can take the screen share down so we could see more folks too. If some folks want to shout out a question, they're welcome to. I'll start off with a couple before we get to shout outs. So let's see. Someone asked a specific question on finger limes. Are they an understory tree or not? Somebody said we can't have any other plants close by, and also how long do they bear fruit from seed?
Yeah, how long to bear fruit from seed? That can take 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think as little as 5 as well. I'm pretty sure.
From 5 years,
Yeah.
depending on growing conditions.
Yeah.
As to how tall they will get, a lot of our rainforest type plants, if you put them in full sun, they'll stay short, they'll stay smaller, more manageable for backyard. If you put them in the shade, they'll do what they're used to doing in the rainforest, and they will shoot up for the sun. So some of our plants, like our lilies, will reach 2 to 20 meters, depending on whether they're in the rainforest or in the front yard. In saying that, they prune really well. The finger limes especially, well, they branch sporadically, probably a good way to put it. They have a very interesting branching pattern. They're all very small, fine. I should have brought one more.
Quite random.
Yeah. I was trying to put it politely.
How do you deal with the thorns on it though, when you're pruning and managing them?
Yeah. So easily a understory plant.
Yeah.
Right. And the thorns that are on them, do you have any special techniques of dealing with them?
You actually just get used to them. We work with them every day, so we're used to having, you know, thorns in our fingers, and you toughen up.
But you can pick them with leather gloves.
Yeah, you can use gloves. Yeah.
Some of our plants, like I don't know if you can see it, the African raspberry back here,
This one.
his spikes are curved. So you walk near him and he will Velcro onto you.
Yeah, you're hooked.
The finger lime, they're all nice, straight, like regular citrus spikes. So you can kind of brush past them and they don't grab you. Just don't try and do it in a knitted coat or anything.
Right. Well, I had a question on canistels. So I have a tree here, a Bruce canistel, that I was lucky enough to snag. Hasn't fruited yet. It's got flowers. Very beautiful specimen. John and I and a couple other folks from our chapter took a trip to Florida for a mango exploration. I got to try canistels for the first time there. And the texture was what everyone talks about, right? With the eggy, kind of like the yolk, a hard-boiled eggy, yolky craziness. And but when I had two different ones, they were from the same fruit stand. I waited till they got a little bit of a give to them, or quite a bit of a give to them, to eat into them about a week later. And I got like a latexy kind of bit on the teeth specifically, or some type of like coating that hit the teeth. And everyone else reported the same thing. Is that typical, or is that just unripe, or what would that be?
A little bit underripe, I think. Yeah. Perhaps it was picked a little bit too early, and then even though it's softened, the latex is still there. But I think some varieties have more of it, don't they?
They can.
Yeah.
They can.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that experience before. Yeah, it's not with every fruit, but that does happen.
Yeah.
And I guess the
but I find
petunias
the creamy custard flavors come through over the top of that, and I'm quite happy to put up with a bit of latex.
Yeah. Are you guys just eating? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So tree ripened, and even when they drop on the ground that first day, that's when they're at their best, I would say.
Yeah, we've got one on the driveway, so I generally race to work on like canistel season to be the first to pick them up.
Yes.
A quick one on our trip to Florida. We went to a place called the Fruit and Spice Park. That's in southern Florida, called Homestead, the region. And it's a county-run park that's all fruit and nut trees, spice trees. And we were the first ones to get there at 9 a.m. And it's like that type of thing where it's like first to get there gets to do all the ground picking, because at the park you can pick anything that's off the ground and eat it. You just can't take it off site. And there's mango sections, and there were sapodillas, or the chico zapotes there, and white zapotes. What was that?
The lychees.
Yeah, we had multiple different types of lychees. It's like a botanic garden because it's all curated with names and labels and things, and they have a greenhouse, and it was just so much fun. They have it sectioned off by continent, so you can see the African, the Asian, everything. So it was super fun.
Yeah,
Was there an Australian section?
There was an Australian section. Yeah, I can't remember what was ripe though. Do you remember, John?
No, I don't remember either, but I do remember getting that jackfruit that was on the ground with all the fruit flies on it. That was absolutely out of this world.
Yeah.
Oh, it was good.
Oh yeah, it was so good. It looked like we almost passed it up because there were so many fruit flies covering the outside of it that it just was like, oh, that's too far gone. And then I just shoot them away with Rob, and we just looked at it. We're like, well, let's inspect it further. And I just kind of peeled off half of it and just kind of called that for the fruit flies. And then the internal part was actually totally clean, and no residue of maggots or anything. And it was the best fruit fly, or not fruit fly, the best jackfruit.
I think the kindred spirits.
Yeah, we'll do that. That's awesome.
Totally. And do you guys have on both sides the favorite canistels, favorite jackfruits that you'd recommend?
In variety.
I like soft jackfruits personally. So better than crisp. They got better flavor than crisp ones. Yeah.
I like crisp.
You like
I'm
crisp?
unfamiliar with crisp and soft, so they're just different category of texture for different varieties.
Yeah.
Arils have completely different textures. So the crisp ones are really quite like crunching, almost like crunching.
You
an apple,
can
almost.
actually bite pieces out of them quite cleanly.
Whereas the soft ones, a lot of people have trouble with them because you can't actually bite the fibers. So it becomes this mush that people are afraid to swallow in case they gag. But the flavor is much more intense on those. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm assuming mostly we get the softer ones. I'm not too familiar with the crispy ones. I mean, the farmers market, or not for the Asian markets. Yeah.
Do you have trouble growing jackfruits there? Because they are a little bit cold.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen one. I don't know if anyone else can speak to this, but I've seen one mature tree along the coast, only along the coast, and the fruit never developed into like mature fruit. But they're actually, I take that back. Signal Hill and Long Beach, so other areas along the coast. Actually, there's a lot of Cambodian communities and Vietnamese communities, and there actually are some trees over there. But it's relatively
North San Diego County. They're growing in this area.
North San Diego County.
Yeah, like
Coastal
Bonsall and stuff like that. Yep.
Okay, nice. How far from the coast have you seen it?
It's more the zone really than the distance, but it's probably about maybe 10 miles, 11 miles.
And up to what zone?
I'm not sure what zone they are. It's Bonsall. You could actually Google it. Possibly 9B or 10. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay. And what zone are you guys in at Daleys?
I think we're the equivalent of your 8 or 9. We have a different system here.
Right. Okay. Well,
you protect them from frost when they're young. If you're inland here, you can get jackfruits to fruit.
And since you guys do have to deal with some level of frost protection for trees outside, do you have a favorite strategy of frost protection, or just put it on a warm-facing
when they're young,
wall?
you can put a sleeve around the whole tree.
Pulling the mulch back from the trees and we use insulation around the bottom of our trees, usually to protect the sensitive ones, like the jackfruits and the canistels, which we have here at the nursery in quite a cool area, which can get frosted.
So Erin's talking about directly wrapping the trunk. If the tree is too big to put a sleeve around, directly wrap the trunk with an insulation. It's important to get it off again in summer so insects and wildlife don't move in.
The tree may die back with a severe frost, and sometimes we can get a very severe frost here, but you will protect that base of the tree, so it will continue.
Also thermal mass, having rocks around, or if you're in a suburban block, having your trees against a masonry wall helps, but rocks laid around the base hold a bit of heat.
And we certainly answer a lot of questions from people in cooler climates who want to grow these subtropical plants, so we have to give a lot of info about that, and people try a lot of these techniques.
Food forests keep things warm.
They do. They hold the temperature, regulate it a lot more.
Right. So you mentioned a sleeve. Is that what you said? The first thing for protecting it?
Like a plastic guard, I normally use plastic, but a lot of people will use hessian and shade cloth and cardboard, and it just creates a heat trap. And cold air coming down a hill will just go around it and continue on.
Is that covering the full top of it, like around a tomato cage or something like that, or how?
It could, but on cold nights, yes, I actually go out and cover my smaller jackfruits at the moment and and cover them over the top, but generally just around in a circle.
Okay.
Right. But larger trees, it's harder to protect the whole tree. Smaller trees, younger trees, you could use your frost cloth and the trunk wrapping would be good.
Gotcha. Okay. There was a question on if the wildfires affected you guys at Daleys.
No, because of that geology, that I was trying to explain, we're quite a bit moister up here. So we generally don't have the wildfire problems that they have down south. And in Queensland, which is north of us, they're starting to get more wildfires now because of the changes in the climate and the lack of rainfall. But we're pretty lucky. We're very, very lucky. They do exist, and we did have troubles in 2019, but
There were a couple of scary days though. I'm in town just around the corner, but there were a few days there when no one came in. Everyone stayed home just in case they had to fight.
Wow.
We have been blanketed in smoke a few times here at the nursery.
Yeah. Well, we're familiar with the wildfires, Southern California especially. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of mentions of gratitude for you guys coming. There might be a couple other questions.
Elizabeth's got one there, Ty.
Okay. Just going to read it straight up. With all the layers in the fruit forest, I imagine it provides a lot of places for critters to hide. How do you deal with them, rodents in particular? I feel like I'm running a rat buffet.
Yeah, it definitely can be like that at times. So it's protective strategies, cages. Here we have quite a lot of rats. We're close to the bush. A lot of us have gardens that have been quite close to the bush. So it's hard to protect everything from the barrage of pests that are coming your way. Cages, nets, those kind of classic techniques, the exclusion techniques are probably the best. I don't use poison. I prefer a more structural protection if possible. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite collaring technique? Like with sheet metal? Go ahead, John.
Sorry, Erin, I remember a video that you did once on like a semi-espaliered fruit tree where you had a net over the top of it to keep the fruit flies out and all sorts of other creatures. So that was a pretty interesting technique.
I think that was the low chill plum tree. So yeah, we have a lot of fruit fly around this area. So we have a very fine netting that we will put over our trees such as that. And the espalier works really well with that because you've got this flat plane that you can literally just walk up and drop the cloth over the top of it or the net over the top of it. And you don't have all these strange branches to deal with because it's quite hard to get a two-dimensional thing over a three-dimensional shape a lot of the time. But with the espalier, it's just basically up and over and tie off the ends, and that works really well for us here to protect the fruit from fruit fly and birds. Birds are one of our main pests, and bats come in as well. So. And possums. Yeah. So yeah, good point there.
There was mention that in the last slide, it looked like a small pinkish berry called the gin berry, Glycosmus pentaphylla. What can you do with it besides eating it fresh?
Oh, they would dry nicely. Drying, definitely. We dry a lot of things around here. We dry jackfruit, anything we will try it. I think the only thing we haven't liked is custard apple dried.
Yeah. Because we get these things in bulk for the seed. So we'll go over to Tropical Fruit World and say, hey, hand me all your seconds custard apples. And we'll come back with like a ute load of these things. So it's always very boom or bust. And we're working on it. Yeah. My wife gets a bit upset when I bring home that much fruit, but
you could make sauces with that particular one as well. If you have they're not particularly huge, so you would need quite a lot of them. But they into desserts they could be quite nice, or a drink, maybe a champagne or something you could come up with.
Throw them in curry.
Yeah.
They don't normally make it past the garden.
They're just eaten straight away usually.
Nice.
Ty, I saw on one of the last slides there was a big variety of anonas that you've got. You know, a lot of names I've never heard of before. You've got your normal cherimoyas and atamoyas, and then you had your sugar
apple,
custard apples, sugar apples, and all those sorts of things. There's a few other ones in there that I had never heard before.
And have you heard of Rollinia, John?
Yeah. I know the Rollinias. Yeah.
And the Sancoya, the Mexican custard apple, it's a much smaller one. We've had that one here at the nursery. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
That was an interesting, quite small, not particularly seedy, but a very lovely taste to it compared to some of the bigger ones. You know, custard apples are quite large normally, so it's nice to have a small one come through. And we do the soursops here as well very well.
You can just grow soursops.
Yeah. So we're lucky with those.
So I have a question, since there were so many enticing bush fruits that you presented, Caleb. You know, so many of these things, as if we presented California native fruits and plants to you, they would maybe be difficult to acquire off the bat, or haven't made the jump across the water. So is there a way for us to get access to seeds of things like that effectively?
I've been trying to make inquiries of our quarantine service about sending seed to you. And I'm wondering about to the US. What import restrictions do you have? Are you familiar with them?
I would not be the best one to ask. Maybe someone else here would. Anyone else imported?
Yeah, we have to go through the USDA. Usually you have to have an application form, and it has to describe where it came from. The seeds have got to be clean. They've got to be in a Ziploc bag with all of the variety name and the Latin name and every which way. And basically it's got to be visible and free. And then it's up to the USDA's, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, their ability to say, yes, you can have it come in, or no, you're not going to let it come in.
Okay.
And yeah.
That was what I'd found too. That you send it like with all your details and the paperwork to like whatever biosecurity place it was with an envelope or the forwarded address.
Yeah.
So they open it up, check it off there, put in the envelope and send it to whoever it's going
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
Or,
So definitely more work needed there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Well,
So yeah, finger lime. You'd be very much interested in finger lime seeds, wouldn't you?
oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we are definitely.
That's yeah, part of the complicated part. We did have a speaker who's not Australian but presented from Australia. What was his name again, John? He's on YouTube.
Wiley, Dan Wiley.
Dan
Wiley.
Yeah, Dan Wiley,
Wiley.
the Fruit Mentor. Have you checked out his YouTube channel?
Yeah, he's great.
Right, and so he talked about, you know, some of the complications of people from other places moving to California and wanting to have access to fruit from back home, and citrus moving around being a big one, and the spread of Huanglong being and all that, from people illegally importing things in back channels, not up front with the government agencies, and so I guess finger lime, he was explaining, was one of the like most requested fruits by folks here in the States, and so a lot of people do what they need to do, or if they feel like they need to do, to get it over here. So he's working with ag agencies here and in Australia to facilitate exchanges of the most desired varieties, because, you know, there's so many and not necessarily everyone's going to grow all of them. But he did a 30 variety slideshow for us of all things, of all the finger limes from Australia, and had us rate based on color, based on flavor, based on size. He gave some descriptions and had us vote on what we would want to see as a chapter, and he's doing surveys around for that. So that's a different approach, but interesting. Yeah.
Well, we've got one of our workers also works on an finger lime farm. I think she said they've had the farm tested, and there are like documented 92 varieties or something of finger lime on that farm.
Wow, that's amazing.
They're all different. They all have different qualities. So it's amazing.
Well, we get 2 right now. We have 2 here. Yeah, we lack the diversity.
And leave it with this. Yeah.
What's that?
Leave it with us. See what we can do.
Okay. Well, I think unless anyone wants to shout out any other questions, I think.
I put a question in the chat. We're dealing with your jackfruit trees where you have to protect them from the cold. What's the diameter of the trunk, you know, at the base that is relatively safe?
to safe from frost. Ah, see, my trees are all under probably 10, 15 centimeters diameter. Here in the nursery, we've got 20 centimeter more.
Yeah, 20 to 30 centimeters here. And we had a massive frost about
2008.
2008, and which really knocked them back to stump, and they've recovered. So
they've been hit hard since I started.
Yeah, we still cover them though.
Yeah,
at 20 centimeters, 20, 25.
Yeah.
So they're 30-year-old tree.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't measure in centimeters, but my trunk is about 3 inches in diameter, and it has survived the frosts we have here. And I actually got one fruit off of it, roughly a little larger than a softball.
Nice. Yeah.
That's great.
So 3 inches is about 10 centimeters, and 20 centimeters is getting up to be like 8 to 10 inches in diameter. Yeah. We still protect them here.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Thank you.
They are though.
And Charlie, you were saying your lychee trees are not really understory trees. They're bloody huge things.
Yeah, you've seen my lychee and longan. So I would hate to have a tree much taller than them to consider my lychee or longan as mid layer.
They could be high. They will be high. So I've possibly put it into the wrong category there, but yeah, definitely a high. They do love full sun. They can handle a little bit of shade, so they can be big. We sell a lot of smaller size trees here. Everybody in Australia seems to want dwarf size trees, so we have a dwarf lychee that goes out, and its height is probably 2 to 4 meters, so a much more manageable size for most backyards is what people are chasing here.
We have most of our varieties in the Exclusion Orchard male fruit, and they would be 4 or 5 meters.
Yeah.
So they're manageable.
John, would you say my lychee is 5 meters?
Wow.
Yeah, I would say easily 5 meters.
Okay.
Yeah. We just came back from Florida, and we sampled a lot of very unusual varieties of mangoes. Are you guys over there expanding your varieties of mangoes? I know Kensington Pride is a popular one, or about Bowen mango, but
as Erin was saying, there's big demand for dwarf trees. We've got 3 or 4 dwarf ones that we regularly do. We do an Irwin here ourselves. We source in others called a dwarf Palmer, dwarf Allison Red, dwarf King Tai. So, and that takes me into the whole Asian mango family. They're really popular in Australia. A lot of people who were born in Asia want that kind of crispy green mango they can cook with, and also they prefer them a little bit sour when they're ripe too.
Yeah.
Right.
The Thai mangoes, the Asian mangoes are really popular. Yeah, we could sell heaps and heaps and heaps of them.
Yeah, and what rootstock are you using for that? Are you just growing from seed and then grafting on, or have you got a special rootstock?
Usually Bowen, we'll use Bowen rootstock for those, for our mangoes.
Okay.
We get a lot of weevil gets into the Bowen mango seed and causes issues for productivity. So yeah, try and source from weevil-free orchards.
Yeah, and usually the Northern Territory, they don't have such an issue with it, so we'll get seed from there if possible for our production.
Okay, interesting.
Right on. Well, I think that concludes everything, unless there's anything else. Thank you all so much for your time and for all of that wisdom you've shared with us. And I'm excited to keep following you online on your YouTube channel, and seeing how that all evolves.
Yeah, thanks guys. It was
Erin's pretty amazing on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, have a look at us and a bit of a laugh. We've got a YouTube channel too. Let's find out. Have a look at that. We enjoy ourselves and we have a good time, and I think the people that we interview have a good time. So, it's all about having fun and growing unusual and not so unusual fruit trees. So, thanks again for everything. I really appreciate you spending the time and coming across and being with us and imparting all of your wisdom. And I hope that some of us will get a chance to get over sometime and have a look in person and get to meet you guys.
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And don't forget, you know, if any, you know, I extended the invitation out to Kath. I said, you know, if you're ever over on this side of the world, yeah, you're welcome to come in and have a look at our places and see what we're up to, and we'll take you around and show you down San Diego and wherever you'd like to go. So
that's on the table. We'll come.
Yeah.
okay. I don't know that we can put up with 5 kids though.
They're going to stay home.
All righty. Well, thanks again for everything, and thank you everybody for your attendance tonight. I'm sure that you all enjoyed it. It's not that often that we have people from down under coming across the pond and giving a presentation, but it was absolutely enjoyable. And thank you again for everybody and everything. Just remember, you know, we'd like you to, if you're not already members, to subscribe and to join our the OC chapter. We are a fun group, and we like to impart our knowledge to everybody and help them grow fruit trees in their backyards. And we have a lot of good fun. So thanks again for everybody's attendance, and I look forward to seeing you next month, and hopefully it'll be at the Great Park Farm, and it'll be our first open air meeting since COVID, and I look forward to celebrating a future moving forward with everybody. So take care and have a wonderful evening and a great weekend.
Thank you,
Thank you.
John.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.